If you're over the age of 50, there's a silent threat undermining your future. It's not heart disease. It's not cancer. It's something far more subtle, yet devastating: sarcopenia, age-related muscle loss. It steals your strength, independence, and quality of life. But what if I told you that there's one food, yes, one that can play a pivotal role in reversing this decline, even if you're 75? Muscle loss isn't a symptom of aging, it's a predictor of it. This single statement reframes how we look at aging altogether. For most people, the gradual decline in muscle mass and strength is accepted as an unavoidable part of getting older. You get weaker, slower, less stable on your feet, and that's just normal. But what if it's not just a side effect of aging, but a warning sign? A signal that your health and the quality of your life, not just the length, is shrinking faster than it needs to. When we think of chronic diseases like type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and even neurodegeneration, we often separate them from what's happening in the musculoskeletal system. That's a mistake. Loss of skeletal muscle is more than cosmetic or functional, it's deeply metabolic. Muscle is the body's most metabolically active tissue outside of the brain, and its decline sets off a cascade of dysfunctions. As we age, beginning as early as our 30s, we begin to lose muscle mass and strength at a slow but steady pace. This process, known as sarcopenia, accelerates with each passing decade, and by the time many people reach their 70s or 80s, the loss is profound. But here's the key insight: sarcopenia isn't just a byproduct of getting older. It's a biological event influenced by lifestyle choices, particularly nutrition, exercise, and recovery. And when muscle begins to decline, it sets the stage for a host of age-related problems: reduced mobility, increased fall risk, insulin resistance, and ultimately a higher risk of mortality. The data on this is clear. Studies consistently show that muscle mass and strength are among the strongest predictors of longevity and resilience in old age. In fact, grip strength alone, a proxy for overall muscle function, correlates more tightly with lifespan than blood pressure or cholesterol levels. This means that muscle is not a passive victim of time. It's a biomarker, a forward-looking indicator of what's ahead. And it's not just a biomarker, it's a modifiable one. That puts it in a completely different category from, say, chronological aging. You can't stop the clock, but you can absolutely influence how muscle ages with you. One of the most underappreciated aspects of this is the metabolic role of muscle. People think of muscle as something for athletes and bodybuilders. In reality, it's a key player in glucose disposal, mitochondrial health, and systemic inflammation. The less muscle you have, the more insulin resistant you become. The more insulin resistant you become, the more fat gets deposited in places it doesn't belong, like the liver and visceral cavity. This isn't just about looking lean. It's about preventing the slow march toward metabolic syndrome, which is the foundation of so many chronic diseases. There's another aspect of this conversation that's worth bringing into the spotlight: independence. We don't lose independence because we age, we lose it because we lose strength. And we lose strength because we don't nourish and stimulate muscle tissue. When you break a hip at age 80, it's not because your bones suddenly gave out. It's because the system meant to protect your bones, your muscles, had already been failing silently for decades. That fall, that fracture, is often just the final symptom. The problem started long before. That's why saying muscle loss is just a symptom of aging is both scientifically inaccurate and potentially dangerous. It implies that the loss is inevitable and non-preventable, but the science tells a different story. We now understand that the body retains its ability to build and preserve muscle well into the later decades of life, given the right inputs. That includes resistance training, sufficient recovery, and most crucially, the correct type and amount of protein. Framing muscle loss as a predictor rather than a symptom shifts the mindset from passive to proactive. It means that when we see declining muscle mass in someone over 60, we should be treating it as seriously as we treat rising blood pressure or fasting glucose. Because it's not just about function, it's about survival. Hospitalization risk increases dramatically with muscle loss. Recovery from surgery is slower, immune response is blunted, even cognitive function is affected. These are not isolated systems. The body is an interconnected network, and muscle is central to that network. The truth is, most of the diseases we fear in old age don't arrive without warning. They whisper through subtle declines in performance, strength, mobility. The smart approach is to treat these whispers as loud alarm signs that intervention is needed now, not when symptoms become crisis level. Protein quality matters more than quantity, especially in seniors. That may sound counterintuitive at first, especially considering how often we hear that older adults need to consume more protein to maintain muscle mass. While that's true to an extent, the nuance lies in understanding that not all proteins are created equal. The type of protein, its amino acid profile, digestibility, and how efficiently it stimulates muscle protein synthesis becomes increasingly important as we age. For someone in their 20s or 30s, the body is highly responsive to protein intake. Nearly any form of complete protein will trigger muscle-building pathways. But in older adults, a phenomenon known as anabolic resistance begins to take hold. This is a biological change where the muscles become less sensitive to the anabolic or muscle-building effects of protein. What that means is that even when seniors consume what seems like an adequate amount of protein, their muscles don't respond as robustly as they did when they were younger. This is where protein quality makes all the difference. High-quality proteins are those that are rich in essential amino acids, particularly leucine, a branched-chain amino acid that serves as the key trigger for muscle protein synthesis via the mTOR pathway. Without enough leucine, even a large dose of total protein can be metabolically inefficient for muscle repair and growth in older adults. That's why a senior consuming 30 grams of protein from a low leucine source, such as wheat or certain plant proteins, may not get nearly the same muscle-building response as they would from 25 grams of a leucine-rich source like whey protein or eggs. In other words, it's not just the total grams that count, it's the amino acid composition within those grams that ultimately dictates the biological effect. Another key factor in protein quality is digestibility. As we age, digestion and absorption can become less efficient due to changes in stomach acid production, enzyme activity, and gut health. Proteins that are rapidly digested and absorbed, such as whey, dairy, fish, and eggs, have a stronger anabolic response compared to those that take longer to break down. This becomes especially relevant for older adults, who may eat less overall due to reduced appetite or other medical conditions. Every gram of protein they consume needs to count. It needs to have the maximum possible effect on preserving lean mass. Choosing proteins that the body can use efficiently is essential to overcoming this biological inefficiency. There's also the issue of protein distribution across meals. Many older adults tend to consume most of their protein at dinner, while breakfast and lunch are often low in protein density. This pattern is suboptimal, especially given the diminished anabolic response in aging muscle. Research shows that muscle protein synthesis is more effectively stimulated when high-quality protein is evenly distributed across the day, ideally 25 to 30 grams per meal, with at least 2.5 grams of leucine in each serving. So again, we see that the issue isn't simply more protein, it's the strategic use of high-quality protein at the right times, in the right forms. Beyond muscle, high-quality protein plays a crucial role in other areas of aging physiology. Immune function, bone density, wound healing, and even cognitive performance are all influenced by protein intake. In periods of illness or stress, which are more common and more dangerous in older adults, protein requirements can rise dramatically. Inadequate intake during these times leads not just to muscle loss but to frailty, prolonged recovery, and higher risk of complications. And yet, many seniors consume less protein than they need, often due to misconceptions about kidney health or outdated dietary guidelines. The fear of too much protein damaging the kidneys has been largely debunked for healthy individuals, particularly in the context of aging, where the greater threat is underconsumption rather than excess. When we consider the whole picture, the evidence points to a clear conclusion. For seniors, protein quality is not a luxury, it's a necessity. Choosing sources that are rich in essential amino acids, highly digestible, and strategically timed across the day gives older adults a powerful tool to resist muscle wasting and maintain functional independence. While it's true that older adults need more protein per kilogram of body weight than younger individuals, simply eating more won't be enough if the protein comes from low-quality sources. This is why focusing on protein quality is not just a dietary refinement, it's a clinical intervention. Leucine-rich foods are the trigger for muscle protein synthesis. Among all the amino acids that make up the building blocks of protein, leucine holds a unique position. It is the most potent activator of the mTOR pathway, which is the key signaling mechanism that drives muscle protein synthesis. When we eat protein, our bodies break it down into individual amino acids. These amino acids then serve as signals, not just raw materials. Of these signals, leucine is the most important for switching on the machinery that tells the body to build or maintain muscle. This makes leucine-rich foods critical for anyone trying to preserve or gain muscle mass, and it becomes even more important with age. As we get older, the body's response to protein intake changes. The same amount of protein that once triggered a strong anabolic response becomes less effective. This is called anabolic resistance, and it's one of the reasons why older adults lose muscle more easily. To overcome anabolic resistance, we need a stronger signal, and leucine is that signal. Research shows that a threshold amount of leucine must be reached in a single meal to effectively stimulate muscle protein synthesis, particularly in older individuals. For young people, even a moderate amount of leucine can be effective. But for seniors, the required leucine threshold is higher, around 2.5 to 3 grams per meal, to achieve the same anabolic effect. This is where food selection becomes crucial. Not all protein sources are high in leucine. Animal-based proteins, particularly whey protein, eggs, beef, poultry, and fish, are naturally rich in leucine and provide a more robust anabolic stimulus. For example, a single scoop of whey protein isolate typically contains about 2.5 grams of leucine, enough to meet the threshold for older adults. A serving of lean beef or chicken will also deliver a sufficient dose of leucine, provided the portion is adequate. In contrast, many plant-based proteins, while valuable in other ways, often contain lower levels of leucine per gram of protein. Soy is a notable exception among plant sources, as it has a relatively higher leucine content, but even then the total volume required to meet the leucine threshold can be impractically high for many older individuals. It's also worth noting that leucine doesn't act in isolation. It initiates muscle protein synthesis, but the process still requires all the essential amino acids to build complete muscle proteins. This is why a food or supplement that's high in leucine but lacking in other amino acids won't be fully effective. However, if the leucine content is too low, the process won't be initiated at all. It's like trying to build a house with all the materials ready, but no one to flip the switch and start construction. Leucine is that switch. Without it, the rest of the amino acids can't do their job efficiently. Understanding the importance of leucine also reshapes how we think about meals. Instead of just aiming for a certain number of grams of protein per day, it's more effective, especially for older adults, to aim for meals that hit the leucine threshold. That means designing each meal to include a food source that can reliably deliver those 2.5 to 3 grams of leucine. This may look like a breakfast with 3 whole eggs and Greek yogurt, a lunch with grilled chicken and quinoa, and a dinner with salmon and steamed vegetables. It's not about excess, but about precision. Small meals that don't contain enough leucine fail to stimulate muscle protein synthesis and result in missed opportunities throughout the day. In practice, this means that snacks and small meals need to be reevaluated. For example, a slice of toast with peanut butter may seem like a healthy snack, but it contains a negligible amount of leucine and does almost nothing to support muscle maintenance. On the other hand, a cup of cottage cheese or a whey protein shake can make a meaningful difference. For people aiming to combat sarcopenia, this shift in strategy is key. By ensuring that each meal contains a leucine-rich protein source, older adults can more effectively counter the effects of anabolic resistance and preserve the muscle mass that is critical for strength, mobility, and longevity. Leucine's importance has even made its way into clinical nutrition. In many medical settings, especially when dealing with aging patients, muscle-wasting diseases, or post-surgical recovery, leucine-enriched supplements are used to improve outcomes. These aren't theoretical models, they're interventions with measurable effects. They reduce muscle loss, shorten hospital stays, and improve recovery time. The scientific literature continues to support the idea that leucine isn't just another nutrient On the label, it's a driver of physical resilience, especially later in life. The anabolic resistance of aging can be reversed with the right nutrition. Anabolic resistance refers to the body's reduced ability to stimulate muscle protein synthesis in response to food intake, particularly dietary protein. This resistance becomes more pronounced as people age, making it harder to maintain or build muscle mass even when consuming similar amounts of protein that were effective at younger ages. The decline in responsiveness is not just a passive process but rather a complex physiological shift involving muscle signaling pathways, hormonal changes, inflammation, and reduced physical activity. However, it is not a permanent or a reversible state. Emerging evidence suggests that targeted nutritional strategies can significantly mitigate and, in some cases, reverse anabolic resistance, allowing older adults to regain the capacity to maintain lean mass and functional strength. One of the primary contributors to anabolic resistance is a lower sensitivity of the muscle tissue to key anabolic signals like leucine and insulin. As muscle tissue ages, the mTOR pathway becomes less responsive to stimulation, meaning that a higher stimulus is needed to activate muscle-building mechanisms. For example, while a young adult might experience robust muscle protein synthesis with 20 grams of protein, an older adult might need 30 to 40 grams of high-quality protein, and that protein must contain enough leucine to reach the necessary threshold for activation. Simply eating more calories or random sources of protein is not sufficient. What matters is consuming the right kind of protein in the right dose at the right time. In addition to higher doses of leucine-rich protein, the timing and distribution of protein intake across the day can influence how well the body responds. Many older adults consume most of their daily protein at dinner, leaving breakfast and lunch low in both quantity and quality. This uneven distribution leaves long periods where the muscle is understimulated, which can lead to progressive muscle loss over time. Research has shown that when protein is distributed evenly, for example, 30 grams at breakfast, lunch, and dinner, older adults experience greater total muscle protein synthesis compared to when the same amount of protein is consumed unevenly. This more even approach mimics the anabolic rhythm seen in younger adults and supports continuous repair and regeneration of muscle tissue throughout the day. Another factor in reversing anabolic resistance is the role of inflammation. Chronic low-grade inflammation, often referred to as inflammaging, disrupts anabolic signaling and contributes to muscle breakdown. Diets high in processed foods, sugars, and omega-6 fatty acids exacerbate this inflammatory state. Conversely, diets rich in anti-inflammatory nutrients, including omega-3 fatty acids from fatty fish, antioxidants from fruits and vegetables, and polyphenols from foods like berries and olive oil, can help restore metabolic flexibility and improve the muscle's response to protein intake. Omega-3s in particular have been shown in clinical studies to enhance the muscle protein synthesis response in older adults, likely by reducing inflammation and improving cellular membrane function in muscle tissue. Insulin sensitivity also plays a critical role in reversing anabolic resistance. Muscle is the primary site of glucose disposal in the body, and insulin is required not only for managing blood sugar but also for promoting nutrient uptake into muscle cells. As insulin resistance develops with age, often due to physical inactivity, visceral fat accumulation, and poor diet, the body's ability to shuttle amino acids into muscle cells diminishes. Strategies to improve insulin sensitivity, such as engaging in resistance training, reducing processed carbohydrate intake, increasing fiber, and incorporating time-restricted eating, can all contribute to restoring the muscle's anabolic potential. Resistance training itself is one of the most powerful tools in combating anabolic resistance. Physical activity sensitizes muscle tissue to protein intake, meaning that a post-workout meal can have a stronger anabolic effect than the same meal eaten at rest. This synergy between training and nutrition is essential for aging individuals. Even light resistance exercises, when performed consistently, can increase muscle protein turnover and improve the uptake of amino acids. In this way, nutrition and movement work in tandem to restore a youthful responsiveness in muscle tissue. Finally, specific supplements such as creatine monohydrate and vitamin D have been shown to support muscle health and reverse some aspects of anabolic resistance. Creatine improves cellular energy availability and has been linked to increased muscle mass and strength in older adults, while vitamin D supports neuromuscular function and has anti-inflammatory properties. When combined with a high-protein diet and regular resistance exercise, these interventions create a multifaceted approach that addresses anabolic resistance from multiple angles. Whole eggs outperform egg whites in stimulating muscle growth in older adults. This idea challenges decades of dietary advice that emphasize separating yolks from whites, especially among those concerned about cholesterol or calorie intake. For years, egg whites were promoted as the clean, fat-free, protein-rich part of the egg, while the yolk was viewed with suspicion. However, when it comes to promoting muscle protein synthesis, particularly in older adults who face anabolic resistance, whole eggs provide a significantly more potent anabolic stimulus than egg whites alone. The reason lies not just in the quantity of protein but in the complex matrix of nutrients found in the yolk, many of which play synergistic roles in activating and supporting muscle-building pathways. The yolk contains essential fatty acids, vitamins such as D and B12, choline, phospholipids, and other bioactive compounds that are absent in the white. While egg whites are indeed a rich source of high-quality protein, they lack the additional components that modulate the body's ability to respond to that protein. In a landmark study comparing whole eggs to egg whites, researchers found that despite equal protein content, whole eggs triggered a significantly greater muscle protein synthesis response. This suggests that the yolk's nutrients enhance the muscle's sensitivity to protein, possibly by influencing gene expression, hormone signaling, or post-translational modifications in muscle tissue. These effects are particularly relevant for older adults, whose muscle tissue is already less responsive to anabolic stimuli due to aging-related changes. Choline, for example, is a nutrient concentrated in egg yolks that supports muscle function through its role in acetylcholine production, a neurotransmitter essential for muscle contractions. B12 is another critical nutrient found in yolks that supports energy metabolism and red blood cell formation. These nutrients do more than support general health, they directly influence the quality of muscle tissue and the efficiency with which it can repair and regenerate. For seniors who are already at risk of micronutrient deficiencies, consuming whole eggs can provide a compact and highly bioavailable source of both macronutrients and micronutrients essential for muscle health. Another overlooked aspect of whole eggs is their fat content. Fat may seem counterintuitive when discussing lean muscle mass, but dietary fat plays a role in hormone production, including testosterone and other anabolic hormones that influence muscle protein turnover. The small amount of healthy fat found in egg yolks helps facilitate the absorption of fat-soluble vitamins and provides satiety, making whole eggs a more satisfying and complete meal component. For older adults who often struggle with appetite, this can be a crucial factor in meeting daily nutritional needs. Satiety and nutrient density go hand in hand, and whole eggs deliver both more effectively than whites alone. The idea of avoiding egg yolks out of fear of cholesterol has also been thoroughly debunked in recent years. Multiple large-scale studies have shown that for the majority of people, dietary cholesterol has minimal impact on blood cholesterol levels. Instead, it is saturated fat, trans fats, and genetic predispositions that play a more substantial role in heart disease risk. In the context of an otherwise balanced and minimally processed diet, whole eggs do not increase cardiovascular risk and may, in fact, offer protective benefits due to their nutrient density. For older adults, the benefits of whole eggs, including improved muscle health, better nutrient status, and greater anabolic response, far outweigh the outdated concerns around dietary cholesterol. Whole eggs are also highly accessible and easy to prepare, making them an ideal dietary staple for aging populations. They require minimal cooking time, can be prepared in a variety of ways to suit different taste preferences, and pair well with other nutrient-rich foods. For those with limited ability to shop or cook elaborate meals, eggs offer a practical solution that doesn't compromise on quality. They are also cost-effective, making them a valuable option for older individuals on fixed incomes who need to maximize nutrition per dollar. From a practical standpoint, incorporating whole eggs into meals throughout the day can help older adults meet their protein and leucine thrays more easily. A breakfast containing 2 or 3 whole eggs not only delivers high-quality protein, but also provides a powerful muscle-building signal that sets the tone for the rest of the day. Combining eggs with vegetables, dairy, or whole grains further enhances their nutrient profile and makes for a well-rounded, muscle-supportive meal. For individuals struggling with age-related muscle loss, these seemingly simple dietary shifts can lead to meaningful changes in strength, mobility, and overall health span. Muscle is the currency of longevity, and nutrition is your daily deposit. In the context of aging, nothing influences health span more predictably than the amount and quality of skeletal muscle a person maintains. It's not just about strength or aesthetics. Muscle is a central organ of health, intimately tied to metabolic function, immune resilience, mobility, and independence. As we grow older, maintaining muscle mass becomes less of a fitness goal and more of a medical priority. It is quite literally a form of biological capital. And like any form of capital, it can be invested in, protected, and eroded over time. Nutrition, particularly protein intake, is one of the most powerful levers we have to preserve this muscle capital, making every meal an opportunity to either grow stronger or fall behind. The role of muscle extends far beyond movement. It's the largest site of glucose disposal in the body, meaning that the more muscle mass one has, the better the body can regulate blood sugar and insulin. This has profound implications for the prevention and management of type 2 diabetes and other metabolic diseases. As insulin resistance grows with age and inactivity, muscle acts as a buffer, soaking up excess glucose and keeping blood sugar levels in check. Without sufficient muscle, this buffering capacity shrinks and blood glucose control deteriorates. That's why muscle mass is not only a marker of metabolic health, but also a protective mechanism against chronic disease. Muscle is also a reservoir of amino acids, which become critically important during times of stress, illness, or injury. When the body enters a catabolic state, such as during an infection or surgery, it draws upon amino acids from muscle tissue to fuel immune responses and repair processes. Older adults with higher muscle reserves recover more quickly, experience fewer complications, and maintain greater physical function compared to those with less muscle. In this way, muscle becomes not just a buffer against disease, but a resource the body can rely on during physiological crises. The difference between recovering at home versus losing independence in a care facility can come down to how much muscle a person has at the start of that health event. Mobility, another critical aspect of aging, is directly tied to muscle function. Falls are a leading cause of injury and death in older populations, and they often stem not from the fall itself, but from the inability to recover after it. Maintaining the strength to stand up from a chair, climb stairs, or catch oneself during a misstep requires muscle power, not just balance. The loss of fast-twitch muscle fibers with age is well documented, and without deliberate intervention through resistance training and proper nutrition, this decline accelerates. Preserving muscle means preserving autonomy, and autonomy is one of the most powerful predictors of mental and emotional well-being in older adults. From a nutritional standpoint, each meal represents an investment in muscle maintenance. The body needs a continuous supply of essential amino acids to stimulate muscle protein synthesis and prevent muscle breakdown. This makes protein intake not just a daily requirement, but a strategic one. Meals that lack sufficient protein or rely on low-quality sources represent missed opportunities to stimulate muscle repair and growth. Over time, these small deficits add up, leading to sarcopenia, frailty, and the loss of functional independence. On the other hand, meals rich in high-quality, leucine-dense protein signal the body to maintain muscle tissue and enhance strength, particularly when timed around physical activity. The timing and distribution of protein also matter. Older adults benefit more from evenly spaced protein intake throughout the day, rather than consuming the majority at dinner. Research shows that 25 to 30 grams of high-quality protein at each meal, particularly breakfast and lunch, leads to more consistent muscle protein synthesis. Combining that intake with resistance training or even moderate physical activity further amplifies the anabolic response. Nutrition alone can't preserve muscle without movement, but exercise without adequate protein is like trying to build a house without bricks. The two must go hand in hand, especially in the aging body. Muscle mass also influences how we respond to medications and therapies. Many drugs are dosed based on body weight or volume of distribution, and individuals with low muscle mass often process medications differently. This can lead to unexpected side effects, toxicity, or inadequate dosing. In clinical settings, sarcopenic individuals often have poorer outcomes after surgery or chemotherapy, not because of the disease itself, but because their body lacks the resilience to handle the treatment. Muscle, in this case, acts as a form of pharmacological reserve. The more you have, the more buffer you provide for the stressors of modern medical interventions. Ultimately, the way we eat today determines how we will function in the decades to come. Each bite, each meal, each gram of protein is either contributing to or withdrawing from our muscle bank. For older adults, the margin for error is smaller and the stakes are higher. Muscle is not just a reflection of fitness, it's a predictor of survival. The daily habits of nutrition become the long-term determinants of physical capacity, cognitive clarity, and quality of life.